Police are rushing to an address in Courbevoie, France. A distressed woman had called them to report ongoing domestic violence. However, once they arrive, all they find is a drunk man asleep on the couch. For identification, the 6'3" blonde presents a Romanian ID. But something isn't adding up. The man did not look Romanian enough and, for some reason, was oddly familiar. To be sure, they decided to cross-reference the information on their computer. Instantly, an endless list of cybercrimes come up. They were shocked to realize that before them is Julius Kivimaki, the infamous hacker from Lizard Squad. 4 months prior, Europol had put him on Europe's most wanted list. And he had been on the run ever since, but now, they had accidentally caught up with him. But this wasn't his first run-in with the law. Back in 2015, after hacking Sony and Microsoft, and then appearing on national news to brag about it, little was done.
Do you not feel guilty that you've taken so much enjoyment of gaming away from more than 100 million people over this Christmas period?
I'd be rather worried if those people didn't have anything better to do than play games on their consoles on Christmas Eve.
So he spent the next 7 years hacking anything to fund his opulent jet-setting lifestyle, leading him down a darker and darker path until he made one single mistake, putting him on the run at 25, living out of Airbnbs, armed with a slew of fake IDs, miles away from his home in Finland.
It's the single biggest crime in the history of Finland, in the history of our country, when you look at the number of victims. A totally unusual case in many ways.
I've covered a lot of hackers, but Julius is by far the scummiest. As you'll come to learn, he truly has no moral compass.
Honestly, bro.
That's Vinny Omari, longtime friend of Julius.
He definitely was doing it for the rush. The hack itself isn't all that. 1, there's money. 2, there's hacking, okay, and 3, if it's a big hack, there's a lot of attention and clout. These 3 things, they're the pillars. Hit every single one of these 3 targets when you're doing this stuff, you will experience an insane amount of dopamine.
Okay, wait. Let's take a step back to the very beginning. Julius didn't become a most wanted hacker overnight. He was born into an entrepreneurial family in Espoo. In a 2016 interview, he said he used a computer for the first time when he was 3 years old. Realized at a young age he could, quote, make more money online right away than people who graduated from school. As you're already starting to notice, Julius did a lot of these interviews. And the more I dug into his past, the more I found his hobby was truly making people's lives unbearable for the sake of his own entertainment, and then going on to talk about it. And it seems he got his first taste of this on Minecraft. Was a big fan of Team Abolition. These guys were an infamous griefing group in 2012, had a whole YouTube channel dedicated to their shenanigans. Almost have as many subscribers as me. Why haven't you clicked that button yet? And Julius liked them so much he often hung out in their IRC channel using the handle Ryan. Then, 15 years old, he enjoyed getting on servers, stealing people's resources, burning their homes to the ground, and killing them over and over again. To quote the team's tagline, "We like to make people angry in games. It's hilarious. Trust me." Of course, this would get him banned from countless servers. And soon, he would grow bored of griefing. Instead, he would look for new and innovative ways of annoying people. See, Minecraft griefing communities, namely the cheating clients they used, like Nodus, have long been linked to actual hacking, and he gladly walked the path from learning the basic steps in DDoSing to outright committing cybercrimes. It's around this time in 2012 that he became very active on hack forums.
And second to a hacking forum, it was a marketplace. So not much good could come out of fucking hacking and marketing when you put them together, right? He started coming on HF to cause mayhem there.
Was so well known on there that to this day, he has his own entry on their Wikipedia, which notes, although his posts were seemingly rude and offensive to some, he did post some of the most informative threads in the website Inform Hacking section. And reading these threads, it's apparent he had a superiority complex. He liked to shit on other people to make himself feel smarter, but at the same time, he clearly knew a thing or two about malware and website vulnerabilities.
We started to become kind of friends because I was kind of doing the exact same thing already there, but he was just doing it in another fashion. He wasn't actually a bad person, to be honest with you. His intentions weren't ever bad. He just took trolling too far.
He was eventually banned for making a hoax post claiming that he had taken control of hack forums after the supposed death of its admin, Omniscient. Omniscient smacked him down after this, deleted his account, and also deleted the group that he was in, which was a paid group. I think it was $500, whatever. Before that, he was posting looking to recruit hackers. See, Julius always had a knack for bringing like-minded individuals together, and now he was becoming friends with people who weren't just driven by laughs, but instead wanted to make a quick buck.
So what happened was there was this one black hat hacking group. They were called Root, okay? And that's where all the HTP, which were the Hack the Planet members, hang out with. They would talk privately on the private subforum group.
Around this time, he joined the ranks of Hack the Planet, a group named after the 1995 techno thriller. Hack the Planet! At the time, Hack the Planet was notorious for their ability to use their massive botnet to carry out malicious attacks. And it seems Julius was the mastermind behind it. Check this out. He made a thread on hack forums offering a DDoS for hire service. The thing is, a botnet can be used for much more sinister things. They're networks of thousands of infected computers, sometimes referred to as slaves because you can make them do anything. Computers he could extract protected information from while remaining completely undetected. And this would be a much more profitable niche to indulge in than trying to hit off Minecraft servers and enemies of hack forum members for a few dollars per hour. Soon, he would realize this. Enter social security number dateofbirth.ru, an underground personal information marketplace. For a few dollars, one could gain access to another individual's most sensitive data, use that to open credit cards, secure loans, get tax refunds, purchase properties, and even drain bank accounts. There were millions of records for sale, all from American citizens, and so, of course, this caught the attention of journalists. According to Brian Krebs' investigation, whoever was behind the site had broken into the computers of some of America's largest data aggregators. By installing the Zeus botnet, they had gained backdoor access and stole terabytes of legal, business, and public data recorded by these companies, and now it was all up for sale. The malware itself was so carefully engineered that not only did it avoid detection from all 46 top antivirus tools on the market, but some investigators even pondered if it was a government operation. The software allowed the hackers to stay in the company's systems for months, providing a steady flow of new data. Approximately 4 million Americans had their information leaked on the website. But who is behind this hack and how did they do it? Even after months of investigation, no culprit could be found. However, there was one common denominator in every breach. All of these companies were compromised through the same unnoticed vulnerability. Cold Fusion, not the YouTube channel, is a commercial web application platform made back in 1995 by Adobe. Lets people make websites. And as you know, Adobe has a long track record of building very reliable software. So of course, almost all versions of Cold Fusion at the time had a critical flaw that any fairly skilled hacker could use to bypass security features and plant a botnet on the web server. And of course, Hack the Planet were pioneers in abusing this. Julius, along with his comrades, were able to infect over 60,000 web servers. Heck, he even posted a tutorial on how to find vulnerable websites and load malware onto them. Look, I'm not saying they were responsible for the SSN DOB website. No one knows who was running it back then, but it gives you an idea of what this exploit let them gain access to, and they truly used it to its fullest. Despite being a bunch of kids, they were a sophisticated group.
Bro, we were all youngest, like really young. Like nobody really talked about his age. He never really said his age or anything, but like he was super intelligent for his age. And also in person, he's not like exactly the smallest person. He's like 6'7" or 6'8". He's a huge Finnish dude, you know? Like you can't really tell that he's fucking 13 or 14 years old.
And soon, in part due to Cold Fusion, Hack the Planet would grow too big to be left unnoticed, both by other hackers and especially by law enforcement who wanted to put an end to their chaotic acts, in part because they had been posting zines bragging about all their wrongdoings, even bragging about, apparently, throwing the FBI off their trail. The more I dug into these signs, the more and more it seems that Julius was a prominent member of the group.
He was really intelligent, and that's why they took a lot of interest in him. And that's what made HTTP even more like powerful.
I've seen people saying he was a founding member, and I believe them, because so many of the hacks detailed in these are in one way or another directly connected back to him. Check it out. 2 weeks after the DDoS for hire post, he was extorting someone from Image Shack into sending him bitcoins. Now, as you'll soon learn, the extortion here is innocent compared to his later crimes, but it was his first time after all. He was learning. He wasn't learning, though, not to share information about his hacks online, because it's around this time that Zine number 4 got posted, and not only did it detail this Image Shack hack, but they also leaked a large part of the website's database as proof. But things would only get worse in number 5, published in spring of 2013. If you want to pause and read these lines, it'll give you an insight into their hacker mantra. These have always been part of hacking team culture. I remember reading similar things as a young teen and just thinking they were so cool. And while you begin to understand how Julius immersed himself in this world to the point where he would never get out. Now, this would actually be the last sign they would ever post, because as it details, things were seriously heating up. A rival group called Acid went after Hack the Planet's botnet command and control center. This is the server that sent malicious instructions to the 60,000 web servers Julius had compromised. According to the Zine, they almost instantly discovered the intrusion, and so they planned to get revenge. In zero time, they discovered the IRC channel Acid used was hosted on the Swift IRC network. If they could break in, they could call them a bunch of losers and brag about it. Except they were having trouble. Swift IRC wasn't vulnerable to cold fusion, so instead, they targeted the hosting provider, Linode, managed to break in, and this was a big deal because, well, it gave them access to a huge list of other companies that were using Linode for hosting. I mean, some big names here. Such a hack could not go unnoticed. And in no time, someone alerted Linode that Hack the Planet had backdoor access. As the story tells, they suspected a Hack the Planet member was working with the FBI to rat them out. By this point, some of their members had already been arrested, so perhaps one of them was turned an informant. However, they had a huge problem. If Linode reported that Hack the Planet had broken into their backend, they wouldn't have enough time to punish Acid by messing with their Swift IRC. So Hack the Planet offered Linode a deal they couldn't refuse. If Linode would stay quiet about the hack until May 1st, they wouldn't release their customer information, including over 150,000 credit cards. If Linode complied with this request, the information would be deleted. But the FBI wasn't so convinced. Apparently put pressure on Linode to report the break-in. And in a change of heart, realizing that Linode was stuck between a rock and a hard place, they allowed them to make the public disclosure, but just asked that they mentioned their group by name, and in return, they wouldn't leak anything. It's hard to tell how much of this is true. There's clearly a lot of embellishment here, but Linode really did make the disclosure with their name in it. They go on to write they found the mole in their group responsible for the tip-off, hacked their computer, and peeked at them through their webcam. What they saw surprised them big time. An FBI handler was looking over the guy's shoulder. They quickly kicked him out of the group. Maybe having got the scare of their life and realizing how close they were to being caught, this was the last Zine Hack the Planet would ever release. Even more curious, just a few months after it came out, Julius was arrested for the first time. Finnish police had suspected him of running that botnet that infected over 60,000 computers. The BBC also notes that he was accused of helping steal 7 gigabytes worth of email data from MIT. The company that provided MIT's email infrastructure, EduCause, said it had incurred more than $200,000 worth of damages as a consequence. Of course, the Zine had detailed this hack too. The police also found him in possession of 3,000 stolen credit cards, which he admitted to using to make online purchases and even fund a trip to Mexico.
He came to London when he was like 13, bro. He fucking came with fucking paint all over his shirt because he was painting something apparently where he was staying. He wasn't staying with his parents, like he was surviving on his own even at that age.
That's the question people always leave in the comment section. Like, these teenage hackers, where the hell are their parents at, you know?
I talked shit to him about it once, like just trolling him like really hard, and like I hit a soft spot where he just didn't want to talk, so I was just like, fuck it, like okay, I get it, and I never really bothered him about it again. Never ever after that, sir.
Despite the Finnish police even cooperating with the FBI regarding the data breaches in the USA, nothing really came of it. Because he was a minor, he effectively got let off with a slap on the wrist. This is crazy because, well look, I've seriously summarized what Hack the Planet got up to. They could be a 2-hour-long video. He had a full hacking career by the time he was 16, and now he was getting off scot-free. And it's at this point that I think Julius felt invincible, because within a year, he would go on to commit even more audacious hacks, then get on national news, literally show his face to like make fun of the whole thing. But before we get into that, and speaking of the MIT email hack, it's important to have a secure email provider. Luckily, Proton is the sponsor of this video. So Proton Mail gave me a script for this video, but I've been using them for over, I think, 6 years. So instead, I just want to tell you how and why I use them, and hopefully they let me do that. So check it out. Every popular email provider has suffered a data breach at some point or another. And the trouble is, you're the product. They analyze your mail to know everything about you. Your name, birthday, address, phone number, workplace, things you've purchased, trips you've went on. Heck, they've probably even got a copy of your passport. And it's not just that they're analyzing and using this stuff to run targeted ads. It's that when a breach occurs, like in 2016 when Yahoo confirmed emails of all 3 billion users were leaked, do you really want some of your most personal details out there? As you'll soon come to learn, Julius used a data breach to get some of the most private details of thousands of people's lives and then extorted them for Bitcoin. And that's what I don't want to happen. So I use Proton because my emails are protected with an end-to-end encryption, so no one else, not even Proton, can read them. Plus, they're based in Switzerland, so you're protected by strong privacy laws. Uncle Sam can't get his hands on them, and even if he could, he'd get garblegunked, since that's what encryption does. They did tell me to say this, by the way. You can easily migrate your existing email with just a couple of clicks. Got something called Easy Switch. I'm sure that works great. So look, come join me and 100 million other users who have already chosen privacy. You can get started for free, proton.me/crumb. And they didn't tell me to do this, but I've set up an email. Crumb is cool@proton.me. Just email it from your new Proton account and it'll automatically reply with more information on how I use their service. Actually, come to think about it, there's no way they'll approve this because I could send you something like trash talking their company or God knows what else, but we'll see. Look, Proton ad reviewer person, I actually would really like to do an entire video covering how I use Proton at some point, because certain systems like the multiple email alias feature really make my life more convenient and secure, but I can't really do a video like that because I'm stuck in this crazy documentary format. So yeah, if people want to get my tips and tricks, plus a cool meme, I put a cool meme in there, nothing phallic, I promise, they'll need to email me from a Proton email, since I set up the auto reply on that to only care about Proton domains. Plus, I think this will like really encourage a lot of signups. So anyway, you should approve this. All right, you guys get it. Go sign up, proton.me/crumb. Julius had two options ahead of him. He could move on from this questionable career path and pursue other things in life, or with a newly found group of certain scaly-skinned reptiles, cause chaos all across the world for shits and giggles. You may have heard about this collective of infamous hackers responsible for ruining Christmas for nearly 100 million people. Not even a year had passed since the Finnish police had investigated him, and Lizard Squad was making their debut by DDoSing League of Legends, rendering the game unplayable for millions. It seems, despite being investigated for his botnet, they never managed to claw away his access to it, because the only way to head off these giant companies was by having thousands of bots and some scripts to amplify their network traffic. After a rampage of similar attacks through 2014, targeting the gaming community, posting antagonizing shit on Twitter, even swatting a plane that Sony Online Entertainment CEO John Smedley was on, the group had amassed over 120,000 followers, and now we're promising to hit Xbox and PlayStation offline Christmas Day. They made good on that threat, and needless to say, made national news headlines. In the months leading up to this attack, people were confident whoever was behind the group would be found, arrested, and have ruined their lives over some dumb trolling taken to the extreme. I made a 20-minute deep dive into Lizard Squad's antics, which is linked at the end of this video, but the entire time, they were confident. Shit, their tagline was, quote, "You can't arrest a lizard." But here's the thing. After this big Christmas attack, the attention was dwindling, which was their motivation for all of this nonsense. So what did they do? Julius, along with Vinny, got on national news. They offered to do an interview.
I mean, I can't really say I feel bad.
Speaking to us from Finland, this man who calls himself Ryan says he is one of the hackers.
Why we did it? Mostly to raise awareness regarding the low state of computer security at these companies.
You say that you're doing it to make sure that people understand the security or lack thereof on these networks, but you're laughing when you're talking about it. on the internet, you're obviously bragging about it.
It's kind of like a school playground where one guy gets involved and then he gets his friends involved and then someone else would come in just to like back them up.
I was drinking whiskey the night before and smoking. I look outside my window after I hear a door knock and I'm like, shit. There was like a bunch of like media outlets outside my house. I talked to him about it. I'm like, bro, they're literally outside my house. Like, what if I go back and there's police there? And like, he's not stupid. He was arrested before. And he's like, are your machines clean and whatnot? And I'm like, of course they are. And he's like, would you have to worry about it? Yeah, I'm like, bro, what if there are police there? So do I go on as a hacker or not? And he's like, I don't know, like, he's like, I'm like, okay, you do that and I'll go as a security analyst just in case there are feds there and I can show it to them. And he's like, okay. Most people would be like, no, you fucking crazy. I'm not going as the guy that did it. Like, why the hell do I have to do that? He was like, fuck it, it is what it is. Like, I don't really care so much. Like, what's gonna happen? Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? So he just went on as the hacker and I went on as the white hat.
So after trolling Sky News, coming up with some half-assed excuses, Twitter was on fire. They were showing their face. Surely this would be the final nail in the coffin leading to their arrest, right? So what's he do? He posts this picture holding up a sign saying dox me. And if anything, this is quintessential Julius. He does something horrible, then laughs publicly about it. Come catch me if you can. 8 years later, he'd be doing the same in court, holding up Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard, that's the Scientology guy, making a mockery of the entire thing for a crime that I can only describe as disgusting. But for now, surely, he didn't get away with ruining Christmas for millions of gamers, especially being this brazen, right? Well, just days after appearing on Sky News, the Finnish police did arrest him. But on top of all the Lizard Squad stuff, there was an entire harassment campaign that took place in tandem that was about to come to light.
Like, he was super loyal, put it like that way, like extremely loyal. He would never fuck you over, you know? Unless, obviously, you were trying to get at him or...
Not many have covered Blair Strater or the lengths Julius went to make his life a living hell. On Halloween 2013, Comcast suddenly shut off the Straters' cable and internet services. When the family called the provider to see what's up, the company's clerk said that they received a request from their address to cancel it. It was a minor inconvenience, but someone knew their personal details to make a stunt like that. The Straters grew worried, and rightfully so. From that day on, the family would receive multiple calls a day, even at night, from anonymous numbers that spewed verbal threats, promising physical harm and property damage. Listen to this, a real recording of one of the calls. I'll tell you how I got it in just a minute.
Hello? These messages for Blair. You f*** around, mother. You f***ing with the wrong people. You can hear me? We know exactly where the f*** you live now, mother.
They end with threatening Blair's life.
Kill you! Kill you, mother! Come on, Blair! Come on! What? You heard my voice? What's going down, bro?
If that wasn't terrifying enough, whoever it was began regularly calling the Oswego Police Department to report fake but chilling incidents. At 4 a.m., one of these distress calls reported that Blair took heavy drugs, beat his mother to death, and threatened to take his own life with a rifle, causing a SWAT team to rush to his house. These incidents continued for more than 2 years. Their home was swatted countless times, and the Straters couldn't do anything about it. However, after another swatting incident, a police officer admitted that the callers had an undistinguishable accent. Blair had more than a hunch, because he had been writing about exactly who was targeting him on his blog, had exposed Julius and his most sensitive secrets many times. See, Blair wasn't your regular 17-year-old kid from the suburbs of Illinois. He had a passion for computers, spent his nights browsing through various online communities. In many forums, he was known as Root, and back in 2013, he got into a fight with Julius about how Hack the Planet should release one of their Zines. A little argument quickly turned into a heated debate, which led Julius to get banned from the Echo Node IRC chat room Blair was an admin of. IRC is like Discord if you were born before 2000, by the way. Speaking of that, I've got a Discord server. Come hang out, links below. Anyways, knowing how petty Julius was, he wasn't about to let what he deemed as a shameful kick go unpunished, thus launching his campaign of harassment against Blair. As weeks turned into years, Blair would go on to make 3 blog posts detailing OPSEC failures of Julius, not only exposing many of his crimes, but also Julius's real name, and even where his dad worked. In one of the comments, he goes on to write, quote, "Julius isn't some curious youth who wanted to show off his skills. He's a sociopath. Likes to sit in Carter IRC channels and brag about how they can't touch him." And in his first blog, after talking about all this illegal stuff Julius has done, he ends it with the heading, "What will law enforcement do? Nothing." In his second blog post, he actually made recordings of calls Julius and friends made to harass Blair. That's what you heard earlier. Sadly, many of these are lost to time as I'm using the Wayback Machine to access Blair's blog, but looks like some really nasty stuff. I think these posts infuriated Julius. He didn't like to be taunted like this, didn't like to be made a fool. And so with his merry band of cybercriminals, they were about to unleash a plan to get back at Blair in an almost unimaginable way.
Yeah, bro. Everyone was taking shots at Blair. Even I did. Like, every time he would join an IRC or a channel or a chat where there was like loads of people that knew what they were doing, basically, let's just say, you know? He was just going at people 24/7. Like, at the beginning when he would do it, they would like send him his address and maybe send him a few pizzas to like get him to back off, you know? He kept coming back. He would get swatted and he would come back and he's like, you think a few fucking police at my door with fucking assault rifles and maybe a SWAT van's gonna fucking stop me from coming back and, you know, telling you guys that you're skids, shit like that. And then he would get fucked up even more than that, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, you know. It escalated because he kept coming back.
If you were old enough in August 2015 to buy a Tesla, you'd go straight to their website only to be greeted with this poorly made image. It writes, "Tesla, you have been," by Blair Strater. Worry, you'd also visit the Twitter account of Tesla to be met with a weird account named Ripper Gang, promising a free Tesla if you give Blair a call. At last, you'd want to see Elon's reaction to the hack and visit his own Twitter, except he was also offering a free Tesla to anyone who visited Blair's home address. The results were immediate. Strater's phones were ringing off the hook. One dude actually turned up and demanded to open the garage, believing his free Tesla was hiding behind the door. Later in the day, the hacker began shitposting on the stolen Twitter pages, and would you look at this? There's Julius still operating under the handle Ryan, and his gaggle of internet gangsters, one even boasting the Dox Me photo as their profile picture. Blair, meanwhile, was posting on his own Twitter, trying to tell the world who was responsible. Quote, "My best guess is Julius, who the FBI have given a free pass to commit any crimes he wants." Eventually, after repeated harassment, the family was broken. When things couldn't really affect Blair's life, they hacked into his mom's social media accounts, posting the most horrible things imaginable in an effort to tarnish her name. In a Daily Dot interview, she told how, because of this, she lost her job, had been out of work for some time. The stress led to a divorce, and as of the interview, quote, "My family and I are destitute. My ex-husband is losing his house, and I'm losing my apartment. We have nothing." And there was nothing they could do. Even the FBI wasn't able to assist them. Julius, still underage, was untouchable in Finland. When the journalist from Daily Dot reached out for comment on his involvement, Julius on brand responded, admitted to trolling Blair online and turning off his Comcast, but denied other allegations. He shifted blame onto Blair, describing him as not very well liked in the hacker scene. And while there's some truth to this, Blair's mission was more or less to piss off hackers, this was still Julius's harassment campaign at its core. Like in the Tesla hack or swatting incidents, while other people seem to be involved, Julius is always there. That's the thing about this culture. These kids would sit in Skype calls and think up the most evil things to do for fun. Despite all this, to this day, Blair seems to be proud to have annoyed so many people. If you scroll down in his personal blog, you'll see a list of hackers he's enraged over the years. Among 4chaners and other Lizard Squad members, Julius sits in last place, titled RIP Zkill LMAO. Zkill is one of Julius's aliases that I've neglected to tell you about for sake of time, but what I won't neglect to tell you about is the article Blair has hyperlinked this to. Truly, RIP Julius. But for now, maybe you're smart. Noticed the Tesla hack took place in August 2015, yet I said earlier Finnish police had arrested him again on January 2nd after the Lizard Squad debacle. Let's go back in time. After appearing on the news, his wish was granted. The Finnish police formally arrested Julius, accusing him of a jaw-dropping number of crimes. Shortly after, the court found that he was guilty of more than 50,000 cybercrimes during his career at Hack the Planet and Lizard Squad, which included data breaches, payment fraud, operating a huge botnet, calling bomb threats, and even repeatedly swatting Strater's family. All the evidence showed that he did exploit cold fusion to take over websites and extract their credit card information to afford luxuries and fun trips to different countries. He reportedly had gone to Mexico at one point. Now, you'd think Julius had finally met his fate. Surely must have got at least 10 years of imprisonment for the damage he had caused to people. So how is it that just months later, he was back hacking Tesla and harassing Blair? Well, the Finnish court only gave him a 2-year suspended sentence and ordered him to forfeit 6,500 euros for the damages. Because he was 17 at the time, the court didn't send him to jail. He was let go a free man and more or less told not to do anything anything bad, or he'd be going away for real. A suspended sentence is akin to probation. If he committed any additional crimes at all, that's when he would be punished, but for now, he was free. He had again escaped responsibility with a slap on the wrist. If that's not enough to infuriate you, hear this. Before his Twitter account was banned, his description read, "Untouchable Hacker God." He turned 18 a month after the sentence was given. The thing is, there's no way Julius could resist the urge to not continue his life of cybercrime, but now that was too risky in Finland. So he chilled for 2 months and then left the country, stopped using his last name. And as you know, in no time, he was up to his same antics. Except now he was living on his own and was going to have to fund his lifestyle the only way he knew how. At this point, Julius went dark for a few years. No one knew what he was doing publicly, but eventually, he'd start to post on social media. In 2021, a thread was made on a Finnish image board under the topic of tourism, where a man who claimed to be Julius published photos of his fun lifestyle. These photos taken in Dubai show, among other things, him traveling by private plane, renting expensive cars, sailing on yachts, buying valuable watches, luxury goods, and staying in fancy hotels. Julius is, of course, a known villain in Finland. It's a small place, and so people on this post immediately recognized him. And the question is how's he paying for all of this? He was also renting a luxury apartment in the heart of London. Cost it 4,500 euros a month, and that wasn't enough. He was renting 2 more just like it, minutes away from each other. And now was traveling to Dubai to escape COVID restrictions. And on a newly created Twitter, he was tweeting a luxury fashion brand because he's trying to spend $10,000 on designer clothes, but was having trouble with their app. Then photos and stories from France go up, showing him vacationing and partying with friends. Somehow, Julius had a lot of money with no apparent job in sight. And our answer for this lies a year earlier. Someone had made a post on a Finnish language darknet discussion board stating that they had hacked maybe the worst thing you can hack, and they wanted 40 bitcoins to make it all go away.
It's the single biggest crime in the history of Finland, in the history of our country, when you look at the number of victims. A totally unusual case in many ways, not just because of the target of the breach, but the amount of victims, the way the attacker tried to make money out of it, and also unique in the sense that the company which was hit by this breach actually went bankrupt because of the breach.
On the evening of October 24th, 2020, a 22-year-old Finnish student, Jere, received a disturbing email. When Jere read the subject line, his heart sank deep into his stomach. His name, date of birth, and even Finnish social security number were written in the title to grab his immediate attention. Sent from an unknown contact, presenting themselves only as ransom man. Shaking in disbelief, Jere opened the email. It read, "We are contacting you because you use therapy services provided by the Response Center. If we receive 200 euros worth of Bitcoin within 24 hours, your information will be permanently deleted from our servers." Someone was threatening to leak his most personal information unless he paid up, and the longer he waited, the more money they wanted. Miss the 24-hour deadline, it would double to 500 euros. Miss that, and every bit of information on him would be leaked online, even the transcripts of his conversations with therapists. However, Jere would not be the only victim. That day, Finnish Twitter exploded with fearsome posts from other citizens who also received the same demands. But upon looking at the letter, Ransom Man mentions a single company that is responsible for all the victims' leaked data. Vastamo, which translates to place where you get answers from, is Finland's leading psychotherapy company. Founded in 2008 by Finnish entrepreneur Ville Tapio, the company grew from a small mental health startup to a successful therapy company running the largest network of mental health providers in the entire country. And the recipe for its success was quite simple. With just a few clicks, anyone could book a therapy session, pay for it, and receive help from the comfort of their home. And the system for therapists took care of everything, like invoices, bookings, and even storing medical records. And just like that, the company operated nearly 20 clinics with over 200 therapists that brought in more than $18 million in revenue in 2019. People had told their therapist everything, and it was all stored on Vastamo's servers, and now a hacker had broken in, stolen that data, and was threatening to leak it all. A month earlier, Tapio received an email from Ransom Man warning that he had stolen the personal data of more than 30,000 patients. If the company wanted to keep those records a secret, he was demanding 40 bitcoins, which at the time were worth $450,000.
He would have looked at the amount of money that these guys make on a yearly basis, what they're worth, how many employees they got, basically came up with 40 bitcoins, because 40 bitcoins is a random number. Like, I know exactly how his mind works because me and him did this for a long time. So he would have basically just said, you know what, this is like a fair amount, and he would always say that before he would like send someone like a crypto address. He would be like, you know what, I think this is a fair amount, here, send me this much. Like, he was actually really generous, bro, like super generous. Like, it would have saved them a lot of trouble. I'm not saying what Julius did was the right thing, by the way, but I'm saying like he was fair with it, but at the end it was all because of the ego issue.
Tapio wasn't keen on negotiating with a hacker. Instead, he reported the case to the police and hired a security company to investigate how the hack happened. They didn't find any evidence of an intrusion, yet one of Vastamo's own internal developers disagreed with this conclusion. Despite this, it was more or less swept under the rug. And so, a month later, the hacker takes to a Finnish image board, posts this message, stating that they have attempted to negotiate with Tapio, but he stopped responding to their emails. And now, to put pressure on, they were promising to leak 100 patient records every day until the ransom was paid. This first batch of data was uploaded to a dedicated Tor server that everyone could download and read.
And something that was both interesting and alarming about the records that were posted to Tor is that they didn't seem to be coming out of the stolen database in any kind of alphabetical or chronological order, but rather it looked like the hacker had hand-picked records that would be most embarrassing to the victims to post first.
Then something interesting happens. People begin asking him in the comments not to leak their information, even willing to send him money not to. And I think this is when he gets the idea. Started targeting individuals with the ransom email that Jere received. It worked. More than 30 people sent payment, but this wasn't enough for him. He was still trying to put pressure on the company, each day leaking 100 more records as promised. Except things were about to take a turn because on the third day he made a fatal mistake, one that would lead to his identity being revealed.
Quite a small sum. He doesn't even care about the money. Like, you know what he's gonna do with that money? Nothing, bro. He's not gonna do that for 200 euros per person, even though it sounds like a lot. Like, he was going after way bigger shit. Definitely for the lols. He's literally doing that for fun.
I was thinking it felt personal, like maybe an FU to Tapio or Finland.
Yeah, it was, because this guy challenged his ego. I told you, he asked him for 40 bitcoins. The guy just basically left him on red like he was nobody. So he was like, okay, so if you're gonna leave me on red, this is what I'm gonna do. But it just backfired.
3 days after the first batch of 100 leaked medical records, Ransom Man goes to upload more. However, something weird happened. People immediately noticed that the file was almost 11 gigabytes.
Now, those of you who have worked with databases before, or even if you've just had a bunch of text files saved in a folder before, you probably know that 30,000 simple text records should not take up nearly 11 gigabytes, right? This is way too much space.
He accidentally packed up not only Vastamo's entire database, including the medical records, but his own home folder. On it, files such as his private SSH keys, server usage logs, passwords, and other projects and databases. The implications of this cannot be overstated. Number 1, for a ransom attack, accidentally dumping your victim's entire database, well, that's the leverage. And now it was all out there would be no reason to pay up. Number 2, these medical records cover the entire spectrum of life. Some happy moments, but mainly sadness, depression, fear, marital issues, substance abuse, divorce. In therapy, people discuss matters they don't mention anywhere else. A therapist hears things that are never told to anyone else and notes them down. Patients' opinions and thoughts on their nearest and dearest children, spouses, sisters, brothers, and bosses. To make matters worse, some of the patients were children. This is why I said Julius is the scummiest hacker I have ever covered. I think it takes a real monster to try and extort people using their personal therapy notes. Shit, some professional ransomware gangs have it in their codes of conduct not to go after healthcare institutes. Not Julius. Number 3, this was a nail in the coffin. He had accidentally leaked his home folder, which contained personal files leading directly back to not only his identity, but even other hacks he had committed. People pointed this out on the forum, and so later that day he removed the file, writing back, "Whoopsie." come on, man, it's way too late for whoopsies. He might have actually been holding out hope. The Tor network is notoriously slow. In fact, it's unlikely that anyone was able to download the entire file, but uploading it as a .tar was another mistake. That's an uncompressed archive format, and even partial downloads are readable. And soon, people on that Finnish image board came together to piece together what they had managed to download. Had he uploaded it as any other compressed archive format, there's a chance his mistake would have been safe from unwanted eyes. But for Finnish authorities, this was a happy accident.
He liked weed and he liked alcohol and parties because he never really had much of that when he was younger. He was always on the run and whatnot. So obviously when you have so much dopamine coming in and out 24/7 on a daily basis, and you got like a hot girlfriend now, when before a woman wouldn't even talk to you, let alone like travel with you and stuff, like it changes people, and then it kind of like makes you let your guard down as well, especially when you're intoxicated and having quote unquote too much fun.
With all the evidence pointing to Julius, the authorities prepared a 2,200-page read of all his crimes. But how do you arrest a hacker who had long ago fled the country? Well, for 2 years, Julius was a free man, spent his time partying and lollygagging around Europe. But come October 2022, the Finns arrested him in absentia for failure to attend a court date. They knew he wasn't going to show up, but this was a formality that let them put him on Europol's most wanted list. This now meant law enforcement agencies across Europe would be actively seeking his arrest, drastically reducing his ability to travel. He'd now need to remain in hiding and avoid ever giving up his real identification. Yet, as news broke with his face plastered on news articles around the world, Julius took to Reddit to respond to comments on threads about himself, claiming that he wanted to go back to Finland to address the charges but couldn't do so because of a quote secret trial that had already put him in jail. He didn't seem too bothered by any of this though, because these stories were still going up, showing him partying his ass off, drinking, and having fun in France. Unfortunately for Julius, this was going to catch up with him. On February 3rd, 2023, a local police department in Courbevoie, France, received a call from a distressed woman. She reported that 2 young people living in her apartment block returned home and got into a heated argument. Once police officers arrived on the scene, they discovered a 6'3" blonde snoring on the couch, gently woke him up, asked for his ID. When he handed it over, it stated that he was a citizen of Romania, but the French policemen weren't so convinced. Decided to check their database, and what would you guess? It was him, Europol's most wanted. Julius himself using a fake ID, though not a very good one at that. I mean, it had his real name on it. He had a slew of other fake IDs too. I don't think the Arizona one would have worked any better. Likewise, he was swiftly extradited to Finland, where he was going to sit pretty, waiting for his first trial hearing. In the meantime, the court had been busy prosecuting Tapio. After the hack, not only was he of course fired, but the company even declared bankruptcy. To rub salt in the wound, Julius had bragged about the poor state of Vastamo's security, saying that the company had used a default username and password to secure their backend. And look, you can't mess around with data privacy in Europe and get away with it. Hacked or not, the Finnish were going to crack down on Tapio. And as it turns out, he had been keeping many secrets from customers. It was found Vastamo's entire database was left dangerously exposed to the web for 16 months, guarded by nothing more than this default password combination. Worse, none of the records were anonymized or encrypted, which is the rule of thumb when you're dealing with this sort of information. And worse, the investigation found that Vastamo's customer database and sensitive session notes had been breached 2 other times. Once in November 2018, and then again in mid-March 2019. And Tapio, despite knowing about the hack in 2019, didn't inform the authorities or even other members on the company's board. It was purposefully hidden. He tried to cover it up. So come April 2023, the Finnish court handed Tapio a 3-month suspended sentence, stating that the severity of the crime and the length of time that highly sensitive data was not adequately protected from falling into the wrong hands meant that Tapio must receive a prison sentence for the act. However, since he had no previous criminal record, it would impose a suspended sentence instead. For his part, Tapio denied committing any offense. Instead, he blamed the responsibility on former members of the company's IT team. I can only imagine Julius was laughing in his cell after hearing this news. But now, it was his time to face justice. That is, unless he would find a way to get out of it like he always has before.
As for the prison or jail sentences, he doesn't care, bro. He's just gonna troll the whole thing. Even if they have him in handcuffs and they're like taking him away to the cells, bro, he'll still be smiling and trolling.
Julius attended his first trial hearing in October of 2023. This was a preparatory session for his lawyer and the prosecutors to consider issues that would be disputed and undisputed. But look, they had spent 2 years now investigating him, building a case, and so the prosecutors right away just demanded a sentence of 7 years in prison, laying out 5 different counts. Number 1, aggravated data breaches. Number 2, attempted extortion against Vastamo. Number 3, 9,598 aggravated invasions of privacy. And if that wasn't enough, number 4, 21,316 attempted extortions against Vastamo customers. And finally, to polish it off, 20 counts of aggravated extortion. This is by far the largest cybercrime case that has ever happened in Finland. And the prosecutors are so confident in these charges. They had spent 3 years building this case before they ever managed to get him in custody. Yet Julius was denying everything. And so if they were going to get him locked up for those 7 years, they'd need to prove it to a judge, and their evidence better be rock solid. Now, the more and more I dug into this whole court history, the more I found that Julius was really determined to do 2 things. Number 1, he was going to make a mockery of the entire process. Number 2, his only goal was to secure a supervised release by whatever means possible. It was perhaps his only hope of escape. Check it out. November 13th, 2023, he arrives at court for another one of the hearings, and with countless cameras on him, he pulls out Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard. That's the Scientology guy, and then smirks and laughs at the camera. He later pulled the same stunt with War and Peace. Even now, at 26 years old, he's still committed to trolling. Acts proud of this attack. You know, it kind of feels like he thinks he's a big star. He never escaped that teenage mindset from Hack the Planet or Lizard Squad. You can tell his lawyer here just looks so disappointed. But his lawyer was fighting for him. In fact, was trying to get him released. Julius complained about his living conditions in the Finnish pretrial detention center, where he had been placed since being extradited from France. And this is what one of those cells looked like. Finland is known for great living conditions in their prison. I mean, crap, this looks like a dorm room outfitted with a $500 budget to IKEA. He certainly wasn't roughing it. Nevertheless, his defense argued that he must not be stripped of his liberty and demanded his release from the detention center. And, you know, as a compromise, they said that he should just be given an enhanced travel ban and electronic monitoring. Pretty audacious to ask for a hacker who had been caught living under a fake identity. Prosecutors were, of course, firmly against this demand, arguing that Julius had been able to successfully avoid being caught while using fake documents. If he was able to remove that electronic device, he could safely travel around Europe without his ID. And I mean, Finland isn't exactly hard to just walk out of. The border with Sweden, there's like no checks there. He could totally get out. Good news was for the prosecutors, this request was originally denied, but that wasn't going to stop him from asking again. And as we've already seen, the Finnish legal system can be quite lenient. He had a real shot here. For now, it was up to prosecutors to start laying down the evidence proving his guilt before he could manage an escape. As you've come to learn, Julius wasn't exactly the most careful hacker, and so tracing his digital footprint was beyond trivial. Investigators created this diagram connecting all the different ways he slipped up. Went so deep, they were identifying his hands in photos he posted, but they had a lot more damning evidence than overpriced water in France. Actually, I don't know, is this water or is this like a facial moisturizer? Someone comment, let me know. So anyways, the server he used to dump the Vastamo database on, yeah, they found that he paid for that on his personal credit card. Worse, they linked his known IP address to the one used to access the database of Vastamo. Then they also subpoenaed that IP address, and the ISP gave them, you know, all the stuff he had been doing online, like booking a hotel room in Helsinki, renting a Bentley car, and even purchasing explicit services on OnlyFans where he used the name Alex Kivimaki. Alex is his middle name? Come on, man. In the courtroom, he admitted to buying things on OnlyFans, but refuted ever logging into the Vastamo database. Instead, he gave a rebuttal, said he frequently used VPN services, so it's not guaranteed that this IP address would have belonged to him. However, prosecutors were ready for this. They said, no, we checked that. The IP address doesn't belong to any VPN service providers on the market. To which he responded that the repetition of the same IP address could also be a coincidence. A 1 in 4 billion chance, so unlikely, but still a possible coincidence. Look, he wasn't going to talk his way out of this. They had smoking gun proof that he did this thing. The only question now was, where was all his money coming from to fund this opulent lifestyle? You know, did he do some hack that they don't know about in the past to get all of this money he seemed to be spending? Like, did he have a big crypto wallet out there? If found guilty, he'd be expected to pay compensation to victims, but that would depend entirely on his ability to pay. The next court date was scheduled for January 22nd, and they planned to use that time to dig into his finances. And for Julius, time was running out. They planned to have him sentenced by the end of February, and so he was going to have to come up with a plan quick. Since the last court date, investigators had discovered a Bitcoin wallet on the servers connected to the breach. Julius claimed that he had no idea who these wallets could have belonged to, but the prosecutors were about to drop an even bigger bombshell. Back in 2020, they had sent 0.1 Bitcoins to the address advertised in the ransom attack, and they were able to trace his attempts to mix it before it was ultimately cashed out to his bank through Binance. Not good to have your illicit funds linked to your real bank account. And like when they subpoenaed his bank account, they also found some small transactions, we're talking 1,000, 2,000 euros, linked to crypto sent to him by people with Russian names. So these were also likely other cash outs from the hack. But his financials were all very mysterious. They never did find a big source of funds to match the opulent lifestyle that he was living. Like this guy was jet setting between London, Barcelona, Kiev, Dubai, France, living this nomadic lifestyle. And of course, Julius wasn't giving up any details of how he was funding this whole thing. Maybe he has millions stashed away in a crypto wallet somewhere, might even have the secret key memorized, and like this could fund the rest of his life if he were to get out. The only thing that came of this court date really was more complaints about his pretrial detention conditions. He wanted to be let out on a supervised release, and totally against the prosecutor's wishes, a judge was about to grant this request. Come February 5th, his appeal was granted. He'd be set free on a supervised release from pretrial detention where he had been residing for over a year. This was a big win for his defense. Upon this news breaking, Brian Krebs made a post saying how stupid it was to release him without even an ankle bracelet. The court ordered Julius to a basic travel ban, meaning he was only allowed to move in a pre-arranged area and had to report to police every 2 days. Prosecutors immediately appealed this decision, and a week and a half later, arguing that it would be too easy for him to escape, they won. The Helsinki Court of Appeal ordered Julius back to his pretrial detention, but come Monday, news broke that he was nowheres to be found. The same day, he was using Signal to message news stations saying, quote, "I messed up the dinner plans a bit. Terribly busy now because of that. The phone rings nonstop, but I plan to report to authorities as soon as possible." Of course, he didn't report. And so come February 23rd, police issued a statement advising the public that under the general right of arrest in Finland, anyone may arrest a wanted person, can even use necessary means of force if that person is resisting. This made things a lot riskier. Everyone in Finland now wanted to play Dog the Bounty Hunter and get Julius back behind bars. He'd have to keep hidden.
Nah. It's too big of a case. He's not gonna do that, bro. Trust. He won't run away. I don't see him running from this. He wasn't like one of those guys that always go on the run and shit, bro. Otherwise they would have charged him of that as well.
And well, maybe Vinny was right, because just a day after they advised the public of this law, news broke that they had got him on their own, just in time to appear for the February 27th court hearing, where the prosecutors would lay out their final statements. This was their chance to tell the judge exactly how they wanted him sentenced. They started by stating that the crime was completely ruthless and exceptionally cruel, showing a complete disregard for victims. Quote, "No other criminal entity has caused as much suffering. A more serious set of acts cannot be imagined." They made note that during the period when he was releasing 100 records a day, in order to cause panic to influence the success of the extortion, it seems the records he released were handpicked to include patients with the most embarrassing files. They finished with saying, "Such a crime has never been thought of when the punishments were conceived. It is hard for us to imagine a more serious act. Therefore, in our opinion, there is no reason to discuss anything other than the maximum punishment of 7 years. According to the prosecutors, there is no reasonable doubt about Julius's guilt. Yet, throughout the trial, Julius's lawyer has maintained his innocence, stating that the evidence does not connect him to the crime at all.
Bro, he doesn't care, trust me. Even if you put him in prison for 10 years, he's not gonna care, bro. Like, he's like a cockroach. He will survive. He will adapt, like, really fast. He doesn't care if he does that internet for 10 years. He has no emotions towards those things. It's weird. He just won't care. He'll just sit there and smile and just, like, keep himself entertained in his head. He's not gonna give a shit.
The final statements of the defense, that's Julius, will be given on March 8th. The Finnish district court will likely announce the date of the sentencing after that, though the case is likely to get dragged out over many more months if Julius and his defense request more information from the prosecutors. It has already been more than 3 years since the date of the crime. When the time comes, he will probably get the max, but if we've learned anything from Julius's story, there might be another turn ahead of us. Only time will tell what the final verdict will be. I might have to do another 50-minute long part 2, but we'll see. Alright, Vinny, thank you for all your help. Where can people follow you online?
Literally just on my Instagram, obviously. Vinny, Vinnie, and nothing else. That's it. Just Vinny.